dust storm slash snowstorm was over that way. We're on the north side of it and miss it. I guess fortunately, but it would have been cool to see it, drive kind of through it or near it. But that's it. That's where it was. We're totally angling north, or like I said, probably east. You see the shadows are still perpendicular, and it's still before 1 o'clock. So. We're not going to see that snowstorm, sandstorm. Some snow up there to the north in whatever mountains those are. But overall, still pretty dry and warm here. It's 68 degrees. And we're on a really long, slow uphill. You can tell it's uphill because we're cruising along really good and drive at 70 miles an hour, maybe 71 or 2. But look at the mileage, only 14.7. This van has gotten me as much as 20 miles per gallon on level ground. At moderate, like 60 mile an hour, 65, it'll start to peak at like 20 miles per gallon, which I was really surprised at. I thought 16 or so would be about what it could max out at, but it really does get good, efficient mileage for how big of a vehicle this is. This is a 170-inch Sprinter van, and it's very aerodynamic, but it's a big vehicle, and to get that kind of mileage, I was just really impressed with. So hopefully we're not driving through any snow. Also, these cars aren't giving me any clues to where we are yet. A lot of them are Arizona, and a lot of them are New Mexico plates. So, I'm going to sound really stupid in post-production when I make this video, and I'm able to put a map to this and see that I was in, like, Arizona, 40 miles from New Mexico the whole time. But, and another interesting thing I saw on the signs for El Paso was El Paso has been 230, 228, somewhere in that range, miles away for quite a while. So I think I'm kind of skirting around, not headed directly towards El Paso. I noticed on the map before I left that I-10 doesn't head directly east. When you first leave Phoenix, it dips south to Tucson. Likely it's because it has to get around those mountains we went through. But it dips south and then curves up back northeast. And I think I'm probably on that northeastern track right now. And that's why, because I think El Paso's over that way to the southwest or southeast, that we're not making any progress towards it directly. We're kind of skirting it, going around the same distance. And we'll dip up into New Mexico a little bit and then Texas. So hopefully the map will confirm this. It'll either confirm that that's right or that I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm just on the wrong path. But I think it's a little bit of an indirect route, and that's why El Paso is away, the same distance away for quite a while. You can see how they engineered this highway going through these mountain passes that we were headed directly towards that, and we went to the north of it, and now we're headed kind of through this plain valley or whatever it is, plateau or valley, but it's level. That is much better for cruising along than going up and down over mountains. So I know when they made this interstate, they probably had that as a big consideration. So super windy here. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but if you look at the grasses on the side of the road, the trees don't really show because they're just scrubby sticks, but these fluffier plants and grasses on the side of the road, you can see the wind blowing them, and this van is just jerking around left to right. It's really, you have to really pay total 100% attention to keep it on the road. And you can see why. That plain, those mountains over there are probably 15 or 20 miles away. So that wind has a huge head start in zooming across this plain. And then on the other side, there's nothing really to prevent the wind to slow it down. So this is just a flat pan that the wind blows across. It's probably 30 or 40 miles an hour, and it's not constant or steady. It gusts and ebbs away. So every now and then you just get a blast of wind that pushes you to the left. It's basically from the right to the left. And then you try to correct into it, and then it goes away, and so you got to correct back. So that is the wind story for Stafford, Texas, or Stafford, Arizona, or maybe even Stafford, New Mexico. We'll see what this warning is here. Yeah, so that's why. Because there's nothing to stop that wind from getting a lot of momentum built up and just hitting you pretty much from the side. So you can see we're kind of surrounded by mountains, but look, you can see up ahead there, the interstate's way off to the right. It's curving around to the right. So we're not going over any of those mountains. We're going to find a way through them, I'm sure, on this I-10. And we'll see how it goes. So if you're ever stuck in traffic in your Los Angeles or San Francisco Bay Area or Atlanta or Manhattan, and you think, wow, man, this country's just jammed full of people, take a look at this. There's probably one person, maybe 2 or 3 people per 5 square miles. Maybe not even quite that. If you average it all out over how few cars there are and how much simple open space there is, there's just nobody. And look at backwards where we came from, where we're headed towards. Man, this is such an open, huge space with nothing there, nothing developed. The speed limit's 75 miles an hour. You can tell because we're cruising along here at 70, and it seems like nothing. It seems like we're going 30 miles an hour on a residential street. The only thing that betrays that is the wind pushing us around. But look at that space, man. There's nobody there, no houses, no cities. And even way off that way, how far away is that? You know, that's miles away, tens of miles away. You can see some snow way off in the distance in those peaks. Maybe 50, 60, 70 miles, but not much in between. So anyway, that's that feeling I had of like how open and free this West feels, and it's more than just a geographical impression. It's kind of a philosophical one that there's just nothing here. It's free. There's nobody to stop you from anything. I haven't even really seen any cops doing speed checks or anything here. Because if you think about it, what town would they be based in and where would they come from? They'd have to drive 50 miles just to come out here and set up a speed trap. I'm sure they do sometimes, but it's just totally open nothingness out here. So your only entertainment is billboards. Not even any radio stations that make much of an impact out here. You got to bring your own entertainment. So sorry to get so philosophical, but it's hard to not be out here. Just like the traffic and congestion and stuff when you're in the cities with like bumper to bumper traffic, and all you're worried about is like, oh, that guy cut me off, and this guy's, you know, trying to get into my lane. I need to turn pretty soon. When you're out here and you don't have any of that to think about, your mind kind of opens up too, because you're not worried about all that minuscule, problematic, like meaningless crap. That your mind kind of expands as well. So you start to get a little philosophical, and that's a very cool part about the West as well. So here's some more information. Maybe we can see a little bit more where we are. State line, 24 miles, and I'm sure, yeah, see New Mexico state line. So we have been in Arizona, and we're 26 miles from the state line. And I think we're only in New Mexico for a little bit because Las Cruces quickly turns into Texas. And I know Las Cruces isn't that far up into New Mexico. It's in southern New Mexico. So we're almost to Texas, probably within 100 miles of Texas. And the funny thing is, you couldn't tell a difference between any of these states, because they all look like this. You're just crossing an arbitrary line in many cases, or a dry riverbed. I told my friend Michelle yesterday that when I crossed from California to Arizona, that the Colorado River was just a muddy little creek, and she was amazed. She's like, wow, seems so impossible when you think of the raging Colorado River cutting through the Grand Canyon, and you see people rafting and stuff, but it really was, man. It just, all the water siphoned off in this time of year, I guess, when there's not a lot of rainfall, that it is just a slow-moving, muddy, almost a water puddle that you look like you could walk through. You know, it looked like it was 30 or 40 feet across, and you could just walk through it, wade through it, and only get up to like your shins. You can see on some of these rivers, these little creeks and washes, they're just bone dry. I know when they get rain that they have flash flooding, and that's what's so dangerous about them, but before there's any water, they're just dry, just rock dry, bone dry sand pits. And if you're not careful when it rains, water just rushes through them so quickly. But without the water, there's, you know, obviously without the water they're dry, but without the rain they're mostly dry, like 95% of the time. Here's somebody growing something here, olives or some sort of crop, but also very dry, nothing green in any of those trees. Farmland over here has to be irrigated. I think that's a lot of the reason why the Colorado River loses as much of its punch and most of its water, is it's just siphoned off by all these levees and canals and stuff that people use for agriculture. Pecans, maybe those are pecan trees. Pecan pie. I don't know, but somebody's trying to make it go that with some sort of agriculture there. The ground here is very level, so I guess if you bring in water, anything will grow. But if you look on that side where somebody's farming compared to that side, it's you know, there's not much on the right side there that indicates that ground would give up much of anything productive. But I guess it would if it just had a little bit more water. So I-10 at its best. Loving the flat. So you can see we were at 14.3 going up those grades. We're slowly starting to climb our mileage. Almost 15 now. Pretty soon that'll work its way all the way up. When we're on the flat, after a few hundred miles, when we're on flat ground, that mileage will have increased to 18 plus miles per gallon. So we'll get 4 or 5 miles per gallon better just by being on level ground than on that hilly terrain. So I'll give you another perception I have of the West. It seems very red state. It seems very, except for California, it seems very conservative. There's a lot of religious radio, a lot of religious statements on open signs and billboards, huge American flags everywhere, which I happen to actually love. And you know, there's probably really really liberal's not the right word for this perspective, but there's probably really open gun laws, and you can buy fireworks, and look at that. Those guys look pretty ripe. So I don't know, I kind of like it. I like the freedom and openness of it, and not a lot of overly regulated laws and government. But that's another perception I have of the West, that it's pretty conservative. And again, people call that flyover America. It's not a lot of coast, left and right coast politics, but it's a pretty clear perception. You don't even have to almost have a perception of it. It's kind of put right in front of you when you're here.